Good. Excellent. Next slide, please. So according to Fortune.com, there are over 700 million iPhone users in the world today. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you guys use iPhone? Okay, cool. Now, what if I were to tell you you're being scammed? Before I get into that, though, I want to digress for a second. I want you to know that I'm not necessarily against iPhone as its own entity. In fact, I love technology. When I was 13, I got my first iPhone. It was the iPhone 4S, and it was absolutely amazing, incredible piece of technology. And when I was 16, I got the iPhone 6S, and it was gorgeous. It was the pinnacle of technology at the time. But over the past few years, I haven't been really happy with the direction that Apple's been taking lately. And as a result, I switched to my Samsung S8, and that has been the best change I've made recently. So, what's wrong with the iPhone then? Primarily, it's the ads Apple runs campaigns with rhetoric-filled ads that don't tell you anything. They lead with spectacle, and they lead patrons to buy a subpar product. And its strict software policies don't help at all. They limit the capabilities for their users and their competitors. Yeah. So how did this happen? Apple's marketing campaigns target the average consumer, and they assume they're not going to do research. For example, did most of you guys know that Samsung actually manufactures a processor for iPhones? However, iPhone would never tell you that. Apple themselves would never tell you that as a corporation. In fact, Apple ran an ad for their iPhones in 2018, which essentially put which essentially ran iPhone and Android side by side. But they produced an inconvenience on the Android side, had the person switch over, and essentially said secure, or better. They used trigger phrases without telling you exactly what was going on. They used no specific examples, and at the end of the day, they essentially tried to persuade the audience using emotional charge without using any real logic as to what made the iPhone better. And that's an issue, because that's purely ad hominem. That's a fallacy, and that's mudslinging. Essentially, they're attacking a base without explaining why. And I'm not saying that that Samsung is clear of this fault either, because they ran an ad in 2018 as well, and that was very similar. The difference being, though, is that they specified the problems in their series called Ingenious. They went through and they parodied the Genius Bar that Apple's known for, and essentially they went and they created a specific scenario, whether it be charging, whether it be fast charging, headphone jacks, water resistance, or any of the following issues that iPhone users have commonly faced. And they explained why Samsung was doing it better and how they were doing it better. And that's how that type of technique should be used. Just to clarify, I'm not saying that every Android is a Samsung, but for argument's sake right now, Samsung is the most comparable phone to an iPhone. So the ads themselves aren't an issue, aren't the only issue. Apple's also known for its strict software policies, and they do that in order to increase their security, because everyone knows you can't get a virus on an Apple device. But these policies are hurting consumers. For example, how many of you know about jailbreaking? Perfect. So for those of you who don't know, jailbreaking is essentially a process that allows you to open up your phone and bypass a lot of the security measures that Apple has in place in order to find more customization, more personalization options. So you can do things like change your icon packs to make it something, or next slide please, sorry. You can change your icon packs to make them something a bit more presentable to yourself. You can add little tweaks to change how the music display works, or you could even change the themes on your phone. So you can add a dark mode to it if you really wanted to. But did you know that it was illegal until 2012 to jailbreak your iPhone? Because the argument was that even though you paid upwards of hundreds of dollars for this phone, you only purchased the phone itself, and the software still belonged to Apple. So it shouldn't be an issue though, because the only reason why jailbreaking was illegal is because they had to move against Apple's vision for what their software should be. And while that's all well and good from a certain perspective, as a user, you should be able to do whatever you want. with your phone, especially when you're paying that much for it. And just so you know, those options come stock with Android. I have one more point on software as well. The App Store. Next slide, please. For those of you who don't know, Apple both owns the App Store and runs and develops apps for it. This creates an unfair position for them. Essentially, Apple is able to play both player and referee in the game that is the App Store. They have found ways to, so much so that Spotify recently released an ad begging Apple to play fair. Essentially what they found was that Apple was going through imposing unfair taxes, which they could not bypass by using a different payment method because Apple would only accept one certain payment method on their App Store. They limited innovation, so they stopped Spotify from introducing features like having your phone play a song from Spotify using Siri. And essentially they made it difficult for Spotify to continue to be competitive while also being on the App Store. Now this is an issue because it doesn't just hurt Spotify, but it hurts you as the consumer. Now your options are being limited because Apple wants to make a profit, and that's wrong. And again, Apple isn't all bad. From a business perspective, that's a very clever move. They were able to go through and essentially cripple their competitors while turning a profit on it. But it does say something about their ethics. Next one, please. Thank you. So we can fix this though, because Apple's has been hurting its competitors and inadvertently hurting you guys. The first step we need to take to fixing this is address Apple's misconduct. It seems that no one's talking about how Apple is running as a company that only cares about their own profits. They don't care about the consumers. They're not caring about the software or the hardware they're sending out. Essentially, it's become a cash grab. Second, I want you to look past the rose-colored glass. You have to look at the phones objectively. Apple has no problem taking advantage of consumers and hiding behind the spectacle of their ads. And they have no problem with inhibiting innovation for profit. So with that being said, you need to be able to look past what the mainstream media says, what Apple is telling you, what any other company is telling you, and look at the phones objectively. Look at their specs, like their processors, their cameras, and other features that you would like. And that's how you should determine which phone is best for you. Excuse me. And third, don't let companies manipulate you. Do the research. Everyone likes to believe they're above ad campaigns and such, and that they cannot be manipulated. But Apple's been using subtle techniques to manipulate consumers for years. For example, iMessage. The main complaint I ever get from iPhone users is that when they text an Android user, they get the green text, right? So with that, think about that for a second. Apple has created their own user interface for that text messaging system, which means they have purposefully made it so that when you text an Android user, it's not only distasteful to your eye aesthetics-wise, but it also makes it more difficult. Because when it splits the message in two pieces because it's too much, that's not an issue you have on Android. And if you still choose Apple after all that, that's fine. Just be aware of what you're supporting. Next slide, please. In summary, what you learned today was that Apple is a cutthroat company that does not care about its consumers. They're prioritizing maximizing their profits and hiding behind a superiority complex. I apologize. I want to end on one last note. With the founder of Apple, Steve Jobs, his mission statement was to make a contribution to the world by making tools for the mind that advance humankind. Does that sound like the company you've been supporting? Thank you.